She grabbed my wife's arm and screamed, "You don't belong here." Before I could even step forward, two HOA enforcers pushed her against the fence. One of them raised his fist and actually punched her right in front of me on my own driveway. Neighbors gasped, phones came out, but no one dared to interfere. Karen stood there with folded arms, smirking like she owned the whole street. "Teach them a lesson," she ordered like some self-appointed queen. My wife's voice cracked when she said, "Stop. We haven't done anything wrong." I clenched my jaw, every muscle in my body screaming to strike back, but I stayed still. Because they didn't know who I was, they thought I was just some quiet man who'd moved here recently. They didn't know I had 20 years of training and every bone in me was wired for war, but I let them dig their own hole. When the enforcer shoved me and said, "We'll make sure you regret buying this house," I only whispered one line that made him freeze: "You just messed with the wrong family." He didn't expect me to move. He stood there, chest out, waving a laminated badge like it meant more than common decency. "This is HOA enforcement," he barked. "You're violating community rules, pack your things." Karen smiled, folding her arms as if she'd paid for the whole block. One enforcer shoved my wife toward the porch and hissed, "We can have your car towed and your kids taken if you don't leave." My daughter, white-faced, clutched my leg. The world narrowed to that small hand and the lie in the man's voice. I reached slowly for my phone, not to hit record but because years of silence had taught me how to break a room with calm. I set it on the porch rail and pressed live, no yelling, no threats, just a steady camera pointing at them. Neighbors stopped and leaned from windows. The enforcer laughed and pointed at the badge. "You don't want trouble, old man." I smiled then, quiet as a closed door, and said, "I don't look for trouble. Trouble's found me before." The laugh died. Karen's smirk wavered. My voice stayed low. "I served 20 years. You'll want to talk to the real police before you speak to anyone about towing or taking my family." A beat long enough for the guy's swagger to crack. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Are you serious?" Another neighbor clicked their phone. The both of them looked smaller. That small claim, 20 years, hung in the air like a fuse. Viral line: "You just made the wrong quiet man famous." Karen's face turned red, but instead of backing down, she doubled her voice. "He's bluffing. He's nothing, just some squatter pretending he owns this place." She snatched a crumpled paper from her purse and waved it like a royal decree. "This is the official HOA notice. His deed is fake. We have the right to remove him right now." The crowd murmured, uneasy, some whispering that I might actually be trespassing. The enforcers grew bolder again, one of them grabbing my car keys off the hood. My wife gasped, "That's theft!" But he only smirked and pocketed them. I kept my hands loose at my sides. "Go ahead," I said quietly, "but when the sheriff gets here, I want you to explain why you forged documents in front of 20 witnesses." Karen froze for half a second, then barked, "He's lying, call the cops now." One enforcer dialed, loud on speaker, telling dispatch there was a violent intruder resisting HOA authority. The words hit me like a bullet, violent intruder. My daughter's grip tightened around my arm. My wife whispered, "They're flipping the story," and I nodded because I knew exactly what game they were playing. But Karen didn't notice the red light blinking on the phone, still live streaming every word. She didn't notice neighbors typing fast in the comment section. And she sure didn't notice the sound of sirens already echoing down the street. I whispered again so only my wife could hear, "They don't know, the sheriff's an old teammate of mine." Viral line: "She called fake cops on me without knowing the real ones were already on their way." The sirens grew louder, and for the first time Karen's smirk flickered. She snapped at her enforcers, "Stand firm, he'll be gone tonight." One of them puffed up his chest, stepping closer until I could feel his breath. "When the cops get here, you'll be the one in cuffs." My wife wiped the blood from her lip, whispering, "Don't let them take you." I squeezed her hand, calm, steady, because panic was exactly what they wanted. The squad car pulled up, lights flashing across the street, neighbors filming from every porch. Two officers stepped out, real uniforms, real badges. Karen rushed toward them first, pointing at me. "That man attacked us, he's dangerous, he assaulted my HOA staff." She put on tears so fake they almost made me laugh. One enforcer held up the phony notice like it was gospel. But the lead officer, tall and sharp-eyed, didn't even glance at the paper. His eyes landed on me, and for a second the years melted away. "Commander," he said, disbelief flashing in his voice. The crowd went silent. Karen's mouth hung open. You know him." The officer walked past her without a word, stopped in front of me and gave a sharp nod. "Didn't expect to see you here, sir." He turned to the enforcers. "Drop whatever stunt you're pulling now." Karen's shrill voice cut through the air. "Wait, he's lying, you're supposed to arrest him." But the officer raised a hand and the street held its breath. Viral line: "The moment the cop called me commander, Karen's kingdom started to crumble." Karen's face twisted, but she wasn't done. She stomped toward the officer, jabbing a finger in his chest. "You don't understand, he forged those papers. This whole property is ours under HOA law." Her voice cracked, desperate now, but she still tried to look in control. The officer raised an eyebrow, took the crumpled notice from her hand, and tilted it under the flashing lights. "He didn't need more than a glance. This is a bad copy job, wrong seal, wrong format, where did you even print this? The enforcer stammered, it came straight from headquarters, but the officer cut him off. There is no HOA headquarters with police authority, you're impersonating. His tone dropped low, sharp, that's a felony. The crowd buzzed, neighbors whispering, some pulling their kids closer, others pointing phones at Karen. My wife, holding her lip, finally spoke, voice trembling but strong, "They hit me, in front of everyone, what more proof do you need?" Karen spun, her mask cracking. "No, she's making it up, he's tricking all of you, he's just some washed-up vet pretending to be important." I stepped forward then, slow and deliberate, pulling a small worn wallet from my pocket. The officer already knew what was inside, but the crowd didn't. I flipped it open, my Navy SEAL credentials still intact, still official. Gasps rippled through the street. Karen staggered back like she'd been slapped. One of the enforcers muttered under his breath, "Oh God." Viral line, she thought I was pretending, but the truth hit harder than her punch. The officer's tone turned iron. "Ma'am, you and your men need to stay exactly where you are." He signaled to his partner, who was already pulling out cuffs. Karen's confidence shattered, but she still tried to hold the street with her voice. "This isn't fair, you don't understand, he's dangerous, he threatened us." Her words tumbled out, but every neighbor had their phones raised, live comments flooding in. "We saw everything. She hit his wife, they forged the papers." The enforcer who punched my wife suddenly dropped the act. He raised his hands. I was just following orders, man. She told us to do it. We thought it was real." Karen snapped around, eyes blazing. "Don't you dare blame me. You all knew what we were doing." Her scream cracked, desperate and exposed. The officer leaned close to her, his voice steady but loud enough for the crowd. "Impersonating an officer, assault, fraud, trespassing. You want me to keep counting?" Karen's face went pale. She tried one last trick, fake tears, hands trembling. "Please, I was only protecting the community, I didn't know." I stepped forward then, my voice low but sharp, and the entire street leaned in. "You knew, you just thought no one would fight back, but you picked the wrong man and the wrong family." My daughter's hand still clutched mine, and for the first time that night she looked safe. The officer nodded. "She's under arrest." Cuffs clicked and the crowd erupted, some clapping, some shouting justice. Viral line, she called it HOA authority, but tonight she learned what real authority looks like. Karen thrashed as the cuffs snapped shut, her voice shrieking across the block. "You can't do this to me, I run this neighborhood, I'll sue all of you." But her power was gone. Neighbors who once stayed silent now shouted back, "You hit his wife, you lied to all of us. You're finished, Karen." The enforcers stood frozen, eyes darting, trying to slip away, but the officer's partner caught them before they could vanish into the dark. One of them broke down, spilling everything. "She paid us cash, told us she had the cops in her pocket, said no one would ever question her." The crowd roared, phones streamed live. Karen's empire collapsed in real time. My wife leaned into me, whispering, "It's finally over." But I shook my head slowly. "Not yet." The officer glanced at me, curious, as I pulled my phone from the porch rail. The live stream had crossed 10,000 viewers, comments flying like sparks. Reporters were already tagging the county sheriff's office. This wasn't just a neighborhood scandal anymore, it was about to go national. I looked at Karen, her face twisted with rage and fear, and spoke loud enough for every mic, every phone to catch it. "I didn't fight for this country just to be told by a fake HOA queen that I can't live on my own land. This isn't just my fight, this is every American's fight for their home." The crowd cheered, the officer smirked, and Karen's last scream drowned under it all. Viral line, she tried to take my home, but instead she handed me the spotlight. The patrol car door slammed and Karen's screams faded as she was driven away in cuffs. The block was buzzing, neighbors clapping, some crying, kids peeking from behind fences. For the first time in weeks, the street felt free. My wife leaned against me, her lips swollen but her eyes steady. "We can finally breathe," she whispered. My daughter tugged my sleeve and said softly, "Daddy, you didn't even fight them. You just stood strong." That line cut deeper than any medal I'd ever earned. The officer turned before leaving. "Commander, if you ever need anything, you've got brothers still watching your six." He gave a sharp nod, respect clear in his eyes, then drove off with the enforcers trailing behind in silence. I looked at my family, at the home we nearly lost to greed and lies, and felt the weight of it all settle in my chest. This wasn't about one Karen or one fake HOA, it was about standing your ground when someone tries to steal what you've built. I wrapped my arms around my wife and daughter, letting the cheers of the neighbors echo like a promise. I raised my voice one last time so the live stream could hear. I fought for this land overseas and I'll fight for it here. No bully, no fake authority, no corrupt system will ever take my home again. The crowd erupted, flags waved from porches, and for the first time that night the air felt like freedom. Final viral line: I didn't survive war zones to lose a battle in my own driveway, United States.